Hey everybody, in today's video let's talk about whether or not you can be too positive in life, which I know for many people, especially in the law of attraction circles and stuff, they're going to be like, absolutely not, you're insane, you're just trying to tell people to be negative, and that is definitely not the case. What I actually want to talk about is a couple of things that can be interesting, because I think, especially now, even mentioning the law of attraction circles, they tell you, obviously think positive and you'll manifest anything that you want in your life, which I agree to a certain extent. But just as you can be too negative and be too pessimistic as a shield to protect yourself from being let down in life, you can actually also be too positive as a shield to prevent you from also being let down in life. And if you're using these two extremes of either being too positive or too negative, then all you are doing is actually avoiding reality. And if you avoid reality, you're actually decreasing your ability to create change in your personal life. And by releasing your ability to create change in your personal life, you're actually letting go of your power, and that original positive mindset that you were trying to use to avoid reality is now no longer capable of actually changing and manifesting your circumstances, as people would say in these law of attraction circles. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into the content. If you're new to the channel, I talk about, this is like my online thoughts journal, so whatever's on my mind, I just speak it to you, and usually it's this type of stuff that is helpful life advice that's helping me, and so maybe it will also help you. If you like the content, please consider hitting subscribe and joining the Patreon to support me as a creator. Cool, so let's go ahead and dive into, I'm going to give you quickly a personal little story of mine, of a time that I was being too positive, because personally in my life, I have been always aired on the positive side. I've never really ever been a pessimistic person, even though I know many of my friends have, been on more of the negative side, because the more of the cynical side is used as the same strategy. So I'm going to tell you that story. And then I'm also going to briefly discuss what the original intention is for these law of attraction circles, telling you to always think positively. And when we understand actually the reason that they want you to think positively, it actually comes down to how you're using your attention and your awareness and bringing those together to create an intention. That is how you're actually creating the life you are trying to live. So let's go ahead and dive into that real quick. Okay, cool. So that story that I was telling you about is the time that I got evicted, actually. From my apartment. I was like 18 years old. Was I 18? Yeah, because so I've lived in like Oregon all of my life, and when I was 18 I was like, screw home, I want to go out and adventure and leave my parents, right? Because every 18-year-old, you just want to be away from mom and dad, so you have total freedom to do whatever you want, right? Well, with that comes real life responsibilities, including financial responsibilities. I left my house at 18 years old. I moved in with a bunch of friends into an Oregon City house, and that just, when has roommates ever worked out for any teenager, right? There's always drama. That got really bad. I even had to get it's essentially a restraining order on a person that I used to live with. It just got real intense. So we left there, had to come back home, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to go to California. I go to California, Los Angeles, like the world's most expensive place to live in. I wanted to live that Cali dream, and I actually still want to go back to California, but it's a beautiful state, but the taxes are just insane, insane taxes. So I just cannot get myself to pay that much in tax. I was 18 years old. I moved down there with no job, just gonna wing it and think positive. And I went down there, and quickly things started falling apart. even though I had a job there for a little bit, I started doing this business consulting on the side, or at least I tried to. I started getting into the training for it, and I was still in the process. And part of the process was actually getting clients. So I was in the client getting process of all of that stuff and trying to do that stuff. Eventually, I ran out of money, right? After I ran out of money, I couldn't afford an apartment. And then because I couldn't afford an apartment, I started getting eviction notices. I actually had a friend living with me at that time. We're still best friends to this day. I love the guy. We're still best friends. And I go off on a vacation to visit my family in Oregon. He's still in the California apartment. We start getting eviction notices. He gets one. You know, I'm not home. A couple days later, he gets another one. And then a couple weeks go by and they're like, you need to get out of this house within, you know, X days, or like, you know, the sheriff is going to come remove you. And during that whole time that I'm getting all these eviction notices, I am just trying to think positively that I'm going to get all these clients and everything's just going to be amazing. But here's the thing, I was thinking so positively, yet nothing changed. Also, I wasn't doing any of the work necessary to create those changes physically in my life, right? But I was so into and so involved in these law of attraction, positive thinking circles at the time that I was like, so inundated with it. I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. I got this. It'll all get fixed. A little bit of time goes by. Still end up getting evicted, you know, and it just looks absolutely terrible. Looking back on it, years later, I was like, how did I get myself into that mess? And why didn't I do anything about it? And finally, I would say just recently, it clicked as to what I was doing at that time. I was actually watching this one video from, I believe it was on Greg Doucette, reacting to what PewDiePie was saying, and PewDiePie was talking about these bodybuilders, and there was this one girl talking about bodybuilding, and they were saying, you know, being fat is, you know, awesome. That's what they were saying in the video. And both PewDiePie and Greg Doucette, they were like, no, being fat is not healthy. You're actually just enabling someone to be not healthy, so people shouldn't, you know, be encouraged to be fat. And I was like, to me, that makes a lot of sense. I was like, yeah, but there's this really overwhelming thing in society right now where society seems to be pushing approval for everything. And I want to make this clear that approval and acceptance are different. Accepting something, for example, let's say I was overweight. If I'm overweight, I have to say to myself, I accept the fact that I'm overweight, because by accepting the fact that I'm overweight, I am accepting reality. That doesn't mean I have to prove of the fact that I'm overweight, because by me being overweight, I'm actually just damaging my health in the long term. And I personally, my priority list in life is to preserve my health over my enjoyment of foods, fattening foods specifically. So having that prioritization in my life, I'm going to focus more so on maintaining long-term bodily health and taking care of my body. And then you have other parts of society say, no, approve of everybody doing absolutely everything, and enable people, for example, to be overweight when it's really unhealthy for them and it's really not going to be good for them. They're going to have to suffer consequences. They might have to go through pain. That type of stuff is just not healthy for those people in life. And this societal pushing overly of approval has been synonymous with positivity, with this whole positivity movement. And now people are saying you should be absolutely positive to everyone all the time about everything. And you can quickly see how that builds up into being actually overly positive, because what you're actually doing is getting people to not look at reality. The reality is that biologically speaking, we can factually look at people's health markers, and being overweight is not actually genuinely healthy for people's health. It does not increase the longevity of their life, of their lifespan. Now, longevity and quality of life is an entirely different argument, right? But the longevity aspect to me does mean a lot. And so being aware of that, I think it is important to say that if society is always telling people to be positive of absolutely everything, you're getting to this place where now you're avoiding reality. Just like you could be cynical. If you can be cynical, say, oh, I want that car, but I'm never going to have it because I don't have what it takes. Or I want that house, or I want that relationship. I want to be in love, but everybody sucks. But men suck, but women suck. Everybody is being so cynical and categorizing all these things where, again, you're not looking at reality. And as long as reality is being ignored, no actual change in your life can be made. So, being overly negative is bad for you. I mean, bad for you, I guess. You know, it just avoids you from taking ownership of your life, because by putting yourself in this overly negative spot, you're avoiding reality and therefore releasing your power from creating change in your life. And by being too positive, you're releasing your power from yourself and your ability to create changes in life, because you're also avoiding reality. So actually, the point in the middle is to be always consciously aware of the reality that you're living in, and then you can make your judgments and perceptions from there about how you're going to guide yourself in life. Now, keep in mind that, for example, pain and suffering are not the same thing. Just like happiness and enjoyment, or I guess positivity and happiness are not the same thing either. You can be happy in the craziest of circumstances if you make the decision to control your mind to do so. And you can suffer even though, you know, maybe you have some mild pain and whatnot. Suffering and pain are different, and it's the same on the other side of the spectrum. All this coming to say that reality must be looked at, and that is where you are going to be the most powerful in life. And finally, I do want to mention real quick, looking at the perspectives of why these law of attraction circles tell you to always think positively. What they're really talking about is this idea of consciousness. We're going to get into this real quick. That actually comes from how we're directing our attention. There's this quote that goes, where attention goes, energy flows. That makes a lot of sense, right? Where attention goes, energy flows. That's why, you know, people say, what is it? The attention is the most valuable form of currency, is because wherever people are focused on, that is where changes can be made. So if you're paying attention to the certain things that you want to change, if you're paying attention to a negative thing that you do not want, you are going to, because you're so focused on this negative thing, you're actually not focused on the solution. What's really good about having this negative thing in your life is that it helps you define what you don't want, and therefore you should switch your attention to focusing on the thing that you do want, and then creating that change after you've, you know, dealt with everything that needs to be dealt with on the negative side. Then you can focus on the positive and create that change. But all of this comes down to focusing on creating the change by looking at reality. If you're always focused on here and you have some really negative thing here and you keep ignoring it, it's going to stay there because you haven't dealt with it. So you can be too positive to the point where you're ignoring the negative reality, and that negative reality is going to hold you back if you're always turning your blind eye to it, because it's still there and it hasn't been dealt with. See what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know, it's like carrying extra baggage with you. It's like if you put imagine you're in in the airport, right? You're traveling. You put a 5-pound weight or a 10-pound weight or 50-pound weight. You throw that in your suitcase and you're just going to walk with it, right? And let's say your goal is to walk as fast as possible through that airport, but you're going to ignore the negativity. You're going to ignore the extra weight in your luggage, right? Because you only want to think positive. How far do you think you're going to go before you get absolutely exhausted when you're carrying a 50-pound weight in your suitcase? By ignoring it, by only thinking, nope, doesn't matter, that doesn't exist because I am just looking positively forward. That's just going to run you into problems. So what's the point, right? Why ignore the negative things in life, or what can be perceived to be negative? So it's important to look at reality. If you were to look at reality in that suitcase scenario and you look at the 50-pound weight, you know what you do? You grab it, you take it out, which takes you, 30 seconds, and then you keep on going in your life positively, moving forward through your previous journey. So I hope all of that made sense. Thank you for watching this video. I'm so glad to be back. I took a little bit of a break for a little bit. As you know, my little doggy died, my little pupper, and it made me really sad for a long time. And it was just out of it for a while, and he meant a lot to our family. And I also wanted to, I guess, revamp. And for a long time, I was really focused on the micro of this video is coming out on this day. This is what I'm talking about. Video, 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 video. And I just wanted to take a step back and look at the macro picture of 2022. What I want to do in 2022. And I always do this every year. I take a year to plan out. I take a couple weeks off to plan out my next year of my life. And I feel like I want 2022 to be a really powerful one for me, a really transformational one for me, and hopefully create changes in society that I want to see as a result from it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Consider hitting subscribe and supporting the Patreon. You're freaking awesome. I missed you, and I'm so glad to be back. See you on the next video.